So I, 24, female, recently exposed my dad's affair at my parents' 25th wedding anniversary party simply because I was not invited. And right now, my family hates me because they think that I humiliated them out of spite. They're not entirely wrong, but I have my reasons. Firstly, I was not invited because it was my golden child sister who hated me, who was organizing everything. She's 22 and doesn't have any degree or expertise, but my parents still went ahead and invested in her so she could start her event management business. As far as I know, it's mostly her friends and a few relatives who have hired her for small gigs here and there in the past year. So this was her first big gig. And she hates me. She always has. So obviously she didn't invite me. Then, when one of my cousins, who I'm close to, asked me what I would be wearing to the party, that's when I realized that I hadn't received an invitation. And when I confronted my parents about me, they told me that the invitations had been finalized by my sister, but even they agreed that it was not a good idea for me to be there. At first, they tried to beat about the bush and be polite about it, but they were just implying that because I struggled with anxiety, I didn't deserve to be at the party, so I naturally got upset with them and started arguing about how unfair and disrespectful they were being. And then my mom snapped at me, always the first one to defend my sister, and told me that it wasn't their fault that I was a dysfunctional fool with so many mental health problems. And if I wanted to be there at the party, maybe I should have just been normal, but I wasn't. And they didn't want me humiliating them in front of so many guests with my awkwardness. Then she hung up on me, and my dad didn't say a word in my defense. Not that I expected him to either, because things have always been like this in my family. My mom prefers my sister over me, probably because they're very similar. And my dad is the kind of guy who really doesn't have a spine at home. So whatever my mom says is what goes. And if my mom believes that my sister deserves to be treated better than me, then that's what's going to happen. Right from when I was a kid, I knew that my mom liked my sister better, and maybe my dad didn't want her to be so openly biased, but he could never stand up to my mom. And so he never said anything to her about her behavior either, and neither did he try to console me. So it shouldn't have come as a surprise to me, but when he didn't say anything recently, I was a bit annoyed because a couple of months ago, I had accidentally found out that he had been cheating on my mom, and he knew about it. So I thought that maybe because of that, at least he would know that he owed me something for my silence on this matter, because I was keeping a secret for his sake. So the least he could have done was stand up for me and speak in my defense. But even then, he didn't. This is why, after that conversation, I decided to tell my mom and listen once and for all, and I asked my cousin for the venue, sent the address to my dad's affair partner, and requested her to show up on that day and expose my father. It wasn't that hard to convince her. She had been pretty upset with him for the past couple of months anyway, and that's why on the day of the party, she ended up going and telling everybody the truth about my parents' marriage. How it was just a total sham, and how my father had been having an affair with her on and off for the past 8 years. So this is basically what happened, and I can provide more details if it's required. But for now, I just need to know if I did the right thing or not. Because my family has been humiliated in front of everyone. My mom cussed out my dad pretty badly. She threw a temper tantrum at the party and had to be dragged out so she could be calmed down. And after that, when she got home, she didn't let my dad enter the house either, so he has been staying in a hotel. My dad obviously knows that I'm the only one who could have put her up to this. So he told me that he was very disappointed in how I had chosen to deal with the situation. And he said that I had been extremely petty and that I had basically just proved my mother right because I did eventually end up humiliating the family, only out of spite. And I used somebody else's emotions to hurt my family just to get back at them for personal reasons, which was a pretty low thing to do. And now I feel weird about it. So, AITA for having my dad's affair partner expose him at my parents' 25th anniversary party because I hadn't been invited. Edit. For those who ask for more information, here it is. First off, the woman that my father had been having an affair with is the mom of one of my very close friends from high school. That's how my dad met her in the first place. He was the one who used to attend my parent-teacher conferences because my mom couldn't be bothered to do anything for me. It was all about my sister for her. Anyway, that's how they struck up a friendship at first, and then they started an affair. My friend's dad had passed away when she was little, so at least her mom was single. And a couple of months ago, I went to a restaurant a little out of town for a date, and that's where I saw my dad with her. When I parked my car in the parking lot, I saw my dad's car there, and in there, the two of them were making out. They broke apart when they spotted me standing outside, but it was too late. I had already seen everything. I obviously got a bit freaked out at first, but then my friend's mom sat me down and explained everything to me. Basically, she told me that they had been seeing each other for the past 8 years and had planned on waiting to tell me about it after my dad had told my mother. But since I had already found out, it was better that I knew the whole truth. She was the one who told me that my dad did not love my mother at all. He could barely even stand the woman, and he had only married her because of pressure from both their families to get married after she got pregnant with me while they were dating. Apparently, he had always regretted that decision and he intended to get divorced from her after he had helped my sister settle her business and build a life away from the two of them. Originally, it was supposed to happen after my sister went away to college, but since that was not happening and she was still staying with the two of them, they had decided to delay it for a bit. But eventually, it would have to be done, and since I had already found out, they could only ask me to keep a secret from them. So that's how I found out, and I had also been told that apparently after my sister's business started taking off a bit, my dad would talk to my mom about the divorce. And once everything was finalized, the two of them would get married. It was clear that my friend's mom was very serious about my father because she was doing all the talking. But my father hardly even said anything, not even a confirmation or a nod of the head. I agreed to keep their secret, but I also said that if anybody asked me about it, I would not deny anything. Thankfully, nobody did ask me anything at any point. Nobody even had a clue as to what was going on. But then, a couple of weeks ago, my friend's mom started contacting me to ask if my dad had said anything to his mom or if my dad was speaking to me. I'm not very close to my parents, so I genuinely had no clue what was going on, and I couldn't tell her anything. She ended up telling me that my dad had been giving her the cold shoulder for the past couple of weeks, and she was very confused as to what was going on because for the past 8 years, he had constantly been telling her that he would leave his wife after his younger daughter was well settled in life. And right now, she knew for a fact that my sister was working on her business, and it's not like she constantly needed parental guidance anymore. She's in her 20s now. So she was trying to get my dad to talk to my mom and start the process. But he had started giving her silent treatment and she was just confused. So she had tried to talk to me about it because I was the only other person who knew. Unfortunately, I didn't know anything. But from that interaction, I gathered that she was not exactly happy with the situation with my dad. So when I reached out to her and told her about the wedding anniversary and the party and stuff, And by then, she was pretty upset. So technically, I did take advantage of that to get back at my parents. I wasn't above that. But then again, it wasn't like I forced her to do anything. I just gave her the idea and she acted on it. So she was equally as involved. Anyway, this is how the situation unfolded. And yeah, that's it. Also, my friend doesn't know. His mom had requested me not to tell him because she believed that it would be better coming from her. And I do think that it would be more appropriate coming from her. I think by now she must have told him, but I don't know that for sure. Anyway, if she hasn't, in a couple of days, I'm going to tell him myself. Hi, thank you to everybody who commented, whether it was good or bad. Before I get into the update, a couple of things in my defense. First off, a lot of people had a lot to say about the fact that I hadn't told my mom anything about the affair, and instead of being honest, I had chosen to help my dad cover up to that. I would just like to say that it was not me covering up for my dad. It was just me staying out of it. Besides, my mom and I have never had a good relationship. She has never liked me. And because of that, even my sister didn't like me. Hate is always a learned behavior, and she learned to treat me badly because of my mom. From when she was a kid, my sister could see that my mom never really gave me any importance and was always yelling at me for some or the other reason. So she thought that she could treat me the same way. But of course, I was not going to take crap from my younger sister, so I would hand it back to her and we would end up fighting, and that's how she started hating me. And my mom never seemed to care about that either, so why would I care about this woman? This woman who had literally never cared about her first child and instead had always treated her badly. I don't think I did anything wrong by keeping this a secret from her. And even if I did do something wrong, I hardly care about it because I feel like she deserves this. I don't care what anybody else thinks. This is karma, plain and simple. And now, coming to the situation at the party, I do agree that I created it. My dad's girlfriend never would have found out about the address if I hadn't forwarded it to her, so I played a huge part in it. But then again, it's not entirely my fault. She wanted to go. She wanted to show up and create a scene, so she did. All I did was provide her with the means to do so. I didn't force her to go. And if I go back a bit further, I didn't force my dad to have an affair either if he was trapped in a marriage with my mom and didn't love her. Neither did I force him to give her the cold shoulder and turn her against him. So yeah, I do agree that I had a huge part to play in this, but I think it's really stupid to blame me for all of it. Besides, they are the ones who've always treated me badly, so why should I feel bad for serving them with some karma? I've always tried to be a good daughter to both of them. I've always tried my best to make sure that I'm somebody that my family would be proud of, and it has never been enough. And I know that it will never be enough. They have never appreciated me, so I don't feel sorry about anything that I did. Yeah, it might have been humiliating for them, but I don't care. It was very insulting for me too when they said that I was a dysfunctional failure as well, especially considering the fact that I'm really not. I do struggle with anxiety. I'm not good with crowds and I do get a bit awkward, but I don't think that's humiliating for anyone like they were making it out to be. As for the failure bit, I don't know what they were talking about because as far as I know, I'm a normal and relatively successful person for my age. I have a stable job that I love and it pays well too. I don't rely on my parents for money at all, not that they would help me if I did. And I'm completely independent. I think at my age it's good enough, so I don't know who my mom thinks she was calling a failure. Maybe I don't have a business like my sister does, but I also don't have parents who would support me if I started something of my own. So that's a pretty big difference. Now, coming to what's happening right now, I've only been speaking to my cousin about what's going on in my family since obviously my parents are not going to be speaking to me. She's my aunt's daughter, and of course, my aunt, being my dad's older sister, knows everything that's going on. And by extension, my cousin also knows everything since she's 21 and goes to college nearby. So she's still staying at home now. Anyway, she told me that last evening, my dad actually moved in with them temporarily because he couldn't stay in a hotel indefinitely, and he had no idea how much longer my mom is going to keep him out. So he's staying with them currently, and clearly my mom is still very upset with him, and I don't blame her. She should be upset with him. I would probably be considering divorce right now if I was in her place, but I don't think that's on the table for them at the moment. At least not from whatever my cousin has told me, because apparently my dad is trying to get back with her, and my mom is just angry and is holding out on everything. But the topic of divorce has not been approached yet, at least not by my mother. She's just cussing him out every time they get on the phone calls, and she's just taking out her frustration on him. But I don't think she has any intention of leaving him. So it's a pretty situation at the moment, and nobody has any idea how it's going to turn out, least of all me. Because I really don't understand how, even after everything that has happened, my mom can even think about staying with him. But anyway, that's her call to make, not mine. So I don't have anything to say about that. Also, I did speak to my friend, and as it turns out, he had no idea about his mom and my dad. So I told him the truth. Didn't spare any ideas, and then I apologized for not telling him earlier because I just didn't know how to put it across, and also because I didn't want to get involved. He seemed to understand, but he was in shock, which was also expected, so I hung up and gave him time to process everything. I didn't know what else to do. Anyway, at least that's out of the way. I told him, and now he can confront his mom. I kind of feel bad about the mess that everybody is in right now, but I think I have kept these secrets long enough. I don't need to do this anymore. I did try to stay out of it, but that didn't get me anywhere, so now I'm just being honest and telling everybody what they need to know. If that turns out to be bad for them, that's not really my problem. I'm done with this. Hi, so a bunch of things have happened over the past 2 weeks, which was when I posted my last update. So apparently my parents are headed towards a divorce now. It took her a while, but my mom finally decided to file for a divorce, and she spoke to my dad about it. She told him that she couldn't do this anymore, and that after finding out that she had been cheated on for 8 years, she couldn't pretend that everything was fine and go back to living her life out with him anymore. My dad was pretty much devastated, which is strange, because from what I had been told by his affair partner, he never loved my mom. He had always felt trapped with her, and he only married her because she was pregnant with me, and stuff like that. But my cousin told me that the day that my mom finally told him that she would be filing for divorce, she had come over and my dad had literally broke down crying. He had begged her not to do this. He had promised her couples counseling. He had promised her that he would let her go through her phone and stuff and keep him honest. All that jazz. And he had repeatedly asked her not to leave him. I don't understand how he could cheat on her for 8 whole years, set false expectations for another woman, and then expect my mother to stay. I had always hated my mom, but right now I think I dislike my dad even more. This family really is a hot mess, and not one that I would want to be a part of. The one good thing that came out of what I did was at least now my mom would leave my dad. Something that should have happened a long time back. My sister's not speaking to him anymore either, although he is the one funding her business, but I don't think she's worried about that because I know that my mom is going to demand alimony, and of course, my sister's just going to rely on my mom after that. Anyway, that's the situation with my parents, and I'm sure they're blaming me for it. I don't know about my mom, but my dad has been ranting about how I have ruined his family, how I have been ruining his life ever since before I was born. And my aunt has tried to calm him down, but he just keeps ranting hatefully against me as if all of this is my fault. My cousin told me that he's been acting deranged, and my aunt is considering kicking him out because she can't have this sort of negativity around the house, and he's becoming very difficult to deal with. So she might ask him to leave soon. And then he's going to be in a difficult spot because obviously he can't go back home since my mom is staying there. Anyway, I'm glad that my mom is choosing to leave him. She's not a nice woman by any means, but he deserves this. Now, as for my dad's affair partner, I spoke to a friend, and thankfully, he's not very upset with me. Initially, he was a little annoyed that I did not tell him as soon as I found out because we are good friends. But then I told him that I really didn't think that it would be appropriate coming from him. And also, I didn't want to get involved, and after a lot of convincing and apologizing, he told me that it was fine and he was glad that at least now I had come to my senses and told him what he needed to know. Recently, he told me that he had spoken to his mother about it, and she was obviously very distraught because she knew that whatever they had, it was not over now. After the incident at their anniversary party, my father had not spoken to her at all and had blocked her after a few days. And he had blocked literally everywhere. She couldn't find a single way to get through to him, so she didn't try either. Because after that incident, she had realized that he had been leading her on and that he had no intention of leaving his wife and family and starting again with her. My friend told me that he was very upset with her. He had tried to confront her about it and be angry with her, but she's just been so miserable recently that he couldn't even bring himself to do that. And he ended up comforting her. She's learned her lesson now, and she's learned it really hard, but that's what happens when you get involved with married men. I don't feel too bad for her, neither does my friend, but he's taking care of her because he's afraid that she might end up doing something stupid. So he's thankful to me because otherwise he wouldn't have found out. Because she herself had no intention of telling him. She didn't want him to think badly of her, but after all, we are all human and we all make mistakes. Some mistakes are just bigger than others, and I think our parents' mistakes are much, much bigger than what we had expected them to be. So all that's probably harder to deal with. I'm just glad that I'm not on speaking terms with them because I really don't want anything to do with them anymore. But I do hope that things work out for my friend and his mom because unlike my parents, at least he's close to his mom. I know that he feels betrayed right now, as he should, but I'm hoping that they're able to work things out. So that's it for now. Hi, so it's been a month since my last update and a lot has happened. My cousin told me that a couple of weeks ago, just a few days after my update, her mother finally asked my dad to leave because he had been losing his temper over the smallest things, screaming at anyone and everyone, and that sort of behavior was not going to fly in her house. She did offer to let him stay for a couple of days until he found a place, but my dad is pretty egoistic. So the second he was told off about his behavior, which was unreasonable, he stormed out without even thanking his sister for letting him stay with her, and neither did he say anything to the family, even though they had been very accommodating of him throughout this whole thing. After that, since he moved out, she couldn't tell me what was going on because obviously he didn't have any contact with them anymore for a while. But then, a couple of days ago, he came back crying and pretty much begged my aunt to let him back because even though he had found a place, he just couldn't stay by himself in that apartment because he was too miserable. And he was afraid that he was going to end up spiraling and going into a depression that he would not be able to come back from. He promised to be better, and he said that he was not going to behave erratically anymore, and my aunt relented. So now, since he's staying with them again, my cousin told me that he's in the process of getting a divorce right now, and it's going to be pretty ugly because he doesn't find the terms of the petition agreeable. So there's probably going to be a lot of negotiation before they're able to come to a common ground. And everyone knows how these things always turn out. It's definitely not going to be pretty, and it might get long drawn. So it's anybody's guess as to how he's going to be dealing with the situation at hand, because from what I know, my mom has demanded an insane amount of alimony, and my dad's not okay with that. So they're going into the whole mediation thing with their lawyers, and we have no idea how it's going to turn out. But I don't think my mom is going to back down, and I'm very interested in the kind of gossip I'm going to get out of this. At the moment, I know that both my parents and my sister hate me a lot, but that really doesn't affect me. That's how it's been for most of my life. My dad had already been ranting about me, and recently I found out that even my mother and sister had been talking badly about me to anyone who would listen. A lot of relatives have reached out to me to tell me that what I did was not right. It has really hurt my family and that I should apologize to them because they are all miserable right now. It's ironic they expect me to apologize for telling the truth, but so far the way that I've been treated by my family has never seemed wrong to them. It's not like it was a huge secret. Everyone knew that my mom didn't like me and that she didn't treat me well and that my dad never said a word. At that point in time, nobody wanted to get involved, but now all of a sudden, people want to apologize. They want to get all up in our business and have so many opinions about our family. It's just very ironic and funny, but whatever. I'm hardly interested in whatever anyone else has to say. I'm just happy that I did what I did, and my family had this coming for a long time. We can all see who are the dysfunctional failures right now. That's for sure. Hey, so it's been a couple of months since my last update, and recently I found out from my cousin that my parents' divorce finally came through. Long story short, my dad fought really hard and was able to bring the alimony to a normal amount, but even that's pretty high for him. However, I don't know if it's going to be enough for both my mom and sister because it's not the kind of income that they're used to living off of. So my sister might actually have to get a real job since I don't think that my mom will be able to maintain their lifestyle and support her business on that kind of money. But I'm pretty satisfied with how the situation has turned out because nobody's happy anymore. I wanted to teach them a lesson, and that I think I did. So I have no regrets about any of this. I'm very happy. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.